Some of our American thinkers have said, my nation has a national Alzheimer's disease, which is that it doesn't remember what happened yesterday, much less what happened 100 years ago. You cannot function without a knowledge of history, and you cannot function without a knowledge of languages.
Dr. Omar, it's such an honor to have you with us. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you for joining us on Reflections.
It's my honor to be here with you.
Thank you so much. We met in 2006, right? I seem to recall we met earlier.
We met a long time ago.
A long time ago.
And I'm very happy that we met.
Thank you so much.
I'm very happy to be with you now.
Thank you so much. Doctor, could you tell me a little bit about some of your current projects? You told me you're writing a book on Imam Nawawi.
I translated the devotion of Imam al-Nawawi, the Hizb of Imam al-Nawawi, and wrote a commentary on it. And then also there's a preface to that talks about dhikr, remembering God, how it's to be done, what the adab of it is. So that book will be out, inshallah, in a few weeks. And then I'm also working on other things. I have a work in progress, which is a book on theology,
right,
which I hope to finish soon, inshallah.
You've done so many things. You've been so involved with the community, and you're always traveling around the world doing amazing things. But one thing I truly believe in is that there are people in this world who make you love the sacred. And you're one of those people. You make people remember that which is deep inside, that which is sometimes difficult to tap into, but it's there, it's always been there.
I am one of those people who believe in the tradition.
Yes.
And believe that it's important for us to imbibe it and to stand by it. And some of our great Muslim scholars of this time, they say that there is an epistemic warfare that's being conducted in the world today, especially by secular universities, which in their eyes are essentially colonial institutions. Epistemic warfare means that there is an ideological war to show that our intellectual tradition cannot generate knowledge. So therefore, to have social justice, as these scholars say, you must have epistemic justice. And every people that has a tradition of knowledge, they must be shown to have that, and it must not be denied. So when we stand by the tradition, it's because we know that it has great epistemic value, that it does indeed generate knowledge, and that knowledge is critical to our time. But many Muslims, unfortunately, have been so influenced by the colonial project of the secular academic establishments and others that they don't believe in their tradition, they don't have confidence in themselves, and in fact, they have no access to knowledge that's real knowledge. So this is a very important project, and we believe that it is crucial not only to our own well-being as Muslims. You can't have religion without community and without continuity.
Right.
And the epistemic continuity, that we have knowledge and we have been generating knowledge for over a millennium. This is very, very important.
Why do you think so many people have that inferiority complex that you were talking about? They don't appreciate their tradition, and when they do try to make sense of it and appreciate it, they see it through the lens of a colonial kind of mentality, that kind of perspective. Why do you think that is? I mean, what are the roots of that? Is it to do with modernization? Is it to do with modernity? What are the kind of deeper explanations and meanings of it all?
The last 250 years of the Muslim world have been an extremely difficult time. And I believe that this has been our dark age. And this is, of course, the time in which the colonial project reached its apex. And then there was the post-colonial nightmare of the Muslim world. And so I think that many Muslims, all that they know about themselves is mediocrity and failure. And they have no idea who they were. And therefore, they also have no notion of who they could be. We were people of beauty. God is beautiful and He loves beauty. And traditional Islamic civilizations, and I prefer to use the plural because wherever we went, we created a new civilization, whether it was in China or a subculture of a civilization, whether it was in Central Asia or China or Africa or Europe or wherever it was. But we were people of beauty, and we understood that because God is beautiful and loves beauty, He doesn't love ugliness. Beauty is the splendor of truth, and ugliness is the badge of falsehood. And we were highly skilled people. We were people of guilds and crafts and everything that we did. Today, that's hard to believe. And we have to show our people success, and we have to also breed in them the ability to achieve success. This, to me, is a revolutionary act, to get people up off of their feet and doing things that are proactive and positive. Destruction is something that anyone can do. Building is something altogether different. And building always begins in the heart.
What do you think of those who say that the problem with other traditions have gone through their own reformations? The problem with the Islamic tradition, our tradition, my tradition, your tradition, is that it requires a reformation. And we're waiting for that to happen. Different people have been called Martin Luthers of Islam. How do you respond to that? What do you think of that? Do you think we need a Martin Luther?
I was brought up as a Lutheran, and the Reformation that Martin Luther began was 500 years ago exactly, in this year 2017.
Yes.
Is what Luther did a good thing or not? This is a very important question, and to just assume that a word reformation is positive and that it ushers in something good, we should be very careful about that.
Yes.
The Reformation ushered in some of the bloodiest wars that Europe ever experienced, the 30 Years' War, the 100 Years' War in France. Many Europeans today and Americans who are their successors, they are very suspicious, cynical, and fearful of religion, often because of these horrible experiences that came in the wake of the Reformation. The Reformation also had the effect of undercutting the metaphysics of Europe, the metaphysics that had been very well elaborated by St. Thomas Aquinas. And that, to me, is a disaster. So I would prefer the word renewal and not reforming. We don't want a new form. I believe that our tradition has immense epistemic value, immense cognitive value. You have to have good teachers to know that. Yes. Many of these texts of our past are written in such a precision that they're impossible for us to unlock. You have to have really good teachers who can give you the keys and show you the implications. And the late Hassan Eaton, Guy Eaton,
yes.
He said that today you have to be a galactic traveler. You've got to be able to go between the galaxy of the traditional Muslim world, or even the present Muslim world, and the galaxy of contemporary Western secular civilization. This is really true. We have to be aware of both of those camps. And then we have to understand how to relate the truthful aspects and aspirations of both of them together in a very positive way. So I believe in the validity of the tradition. It has to be articulated. It has to be made relevant. Does it need a reform in the sense that it needs essential changes and scrapping all sorts of things that have been achieved in the past? I'm not a partisan of that point of view. And I don't believe that the European Reformation was necessarily a good thing, just as the Renaissance itself, which we taunt as such a huge achievement. But was it really that? Because it fosters ultimately a secular humanism. Their humanism, by the way, was deeply influenced by our own, but ours was a transcendent humanism. And it also then begins to finalize this destruction of a sophisticated metaphysical system that was the high mark of the high Middle Ages. And we look down upon the Middle Ages often, although that point of view began to change over 50 years ago. And we see that actually in the Middle Ages, the Europeans achieved many things that were quite remarkable. It wasn't that dark age that often is presented as being.
A very different topic altogether, Dr. Omar. What do you think ultimately is going on? I mean, what's the deeper meaning of it all? What's happening in America? And is this a symptom of a wider problem around the world? Because there are all kind of nationalisms taking place in India. We see it all around the world. We see it in Europe, although England's a little bit different. We've gone tilted more towards the left with Jeremy Corbyn. But France, Scandinavia, the Benelux areas, you know, people are becoming more, how can I say, there's nationalisms, different types of nationalisms.
Our political system in my country has been quite dysfunctional now for a long time. And there are lobby groups, there are think tanks that are funded by billions of dollars who have nothing in sight other than very self-serving short-term agendas. That cannot be the basis of a functional democracy. And that cannot be the way forward for the most powerful country on earth, which also has tremendous potential and has good people of all the races and ethnic groups that are there. In the 1960s, we tried to bring together the black and the white and other ethnic groups. We thought, many of us, that we had succeeded, and now we're beginning to doubt whether that ever happened at all. It's very important that American democracy become functional. If you are the most powerful nation on earth and one of the most wealthy on earth, then you must have enlightened leadership. And many people who study political science and understand these things so much better than I, they would be able, I believe, to give us solutions. I am not an expert on that, but I think one thing is that political offices cannot be for sale. And we have got to also have means to restore meritocracy, to restore a system in which merit is what rises to the top, and not rhetoric, and not empty slogans and empty cognitive frames and paradigms. One of the great books of this last, let's say 20 years, was Don't Think of an Elephant by George Lakoff. And this is a book about cognitive frames and paradigms, and especially the way that certain think tanks in my country have been tinkering and tampering and playing with cognitive frames for a long time, so that we create a population that is no longer able to think properly.
Right.
And it's not able to relate to itself or the world. My great-grandmother, who lived a long life, she was born in the year that Lincoln was shot, 1865, and I knew her very well. And she was one of my matrons and one of my teachers. But she came west to the prairie in the 19th century. She told me all about that, going on the covered wagons. She taught school on the Kansas prairie in a sod schoolhouse in the 1880s. And she showed me her rhetoric book that she would teach to Kansas farm kids. And in that rhetoric book, it would say that you have to know rhetoric so that you can be protected from the politicians.
Wow.
And so what happened to Kansas? What happened to Nebraska? What happened to our country in general? We used to be very critical. We used to have standards. And the American democracy was founded on the proposition that a functional democracy can avoid civil war. The civil war that occurred in our country in the 19th century was a major blow to us. And I have a book called A Muslim in Victorian America, The Life of Alexander Russell Webb. Webb was born in 1846 and he became a Muslim in 1888. And his life is amazing. He was a Muslim Forrest Gump. Mm-hmm. And in telling his story, I tried to tell the history of America and who we were. And
where can we get this book?
You can get it from Amazon.
Right.
It's published by Oxford University Press. And one of the things that we see in the story of Webb is the devastating effect of the Civil War. An effect that most Americans don't understand because it was a loss to the North just as it was to the South. And many Americans felt that their political system had failed them. You were supposed to keep us out of civil war, and you didn't. And now we are in a situation which is too similar to that pre-Civil War climate to be comfortable. Goodness. That, we've got to have dialogue. We cannot polarize our people. And we have got to be able to bring the right closer to the center and the left closer to the center. Yes. We can't have red and blue America. We've got to have open discourse. And both sides are to blame. Neither is the so-called liberal, secular left honestly described as being tolerant. It's not tolerant. Right. Nor is the right wing, the right wing, open either to tolerance. So we have to have honest discourse. And right now, when these investigations are going on about Russia, well, everybody was involved in that. Both parties were involved. Yes. And you see that both of them are trying to cover it up. All of them are guilty to some extent. Where's the truth? We can't have a partisan nation that is only concerned about itself, its name, whether it gets elected or not, the effect of lobbies and all of these other people who have resources of money. I mean, this cuts out the common man and woman. And I really hope that my country will be able to restore its democracy to something worthy of their highest aspirations and something that serves the needs of the First Nations of our land, the Native Americans, of the blacks who've suffered for centuries and centuries, and of all the immigrants and of the whites and everyone else. We need to have peace. We need to have understanding. We have so much in common with Latin America, and yet most of us have no idea of that.
Why is that?
Again, I think it's because of nationalism. We were brought up in my country, and I love my country.
Yes.
And I love my people. Yes. And I regard my people as the whites, the blacks, the Mexicans, the First Nations and everyone else, not just the whites, not just my ethnic group. But when we were brought up in school, we were shown maps of my beautiful country as if it just existed there in outer space with no Canada above and no Mexico below. And of course, that's not the way it is. And there are studies of pre-Columbian America and of post-Columbian America that show very clearly how there was always a cultural unity between North America and South, not just Middle America, but also in the post-Columbian period that was true. Many of the things that we in the United States are most proud of are things that had precedence in Mexico or in other parts of Latin America. So we need to be one family. We need to understand each other. History is so important, and as some of our American thinkers have said, my nation has a national Alzheimer's disease, which is that it doesn't remember what happened yesterday, much less what happened 100 years ago. You cannot function without a knowledge of history, and you cannot function without a knowledge of languages.
Yes.
We must learn French, we must learn Spanish, we must learn these languages well. Yeah. And we must learn the language of nature also. Nature has a language. We have to learn to speak and to hear that language as well.
Wow. Dr. Omar, do you think there's a philosophical dimension to all of this? Do you think there's an underlying metaphysical reason for the problems that we're facing, not just in America, but also around the world, as a deeply spiritual person? I'd love to know your insight, what you think about that. Because what you were talking about, history, I mean, all the civilizations, whether it was the Zoroastrian or the Byzantine or the Jewish, the Buddhist, the Hindu, all of these civilizations had an underlying kind of spiritual, they all believed in a higher truth. Whereas the modern civilization is void of that. Mm-hmm. And is that somehow related, do you think, to what we're witnessing, who's right? It's kind of like an organized anarchy in that sense when it comes to truth?
Modern secular civilization is strictly horizontal.
Right.
It doesn't believe in anything beyond what it can see, hear, touch, taste, and smell. That's what I mean by horizontal.
Right.
It believes that we can relate one thing to another thing, one horizontal thing, one empirical thing to another thing. And by that we can explain everything.
Yes.
No traditional civilization would have ever accepted that. The arrogance
that comes with it as well.
With that comes arrogance, yeah. Because you're deprived of self-knowledge.
Right.
You're deprived of self-consciousness. And the realm of the horizontal, if it is strictly horizontal, is a prison. And it is also a prison where atheism and agnosticism will naturally thrive. Yes. That's the only place where they can exist. Yes. So you have to have a vertical connection. Yes. You have to understand that the finite points to the infinite. Mm-hmm. That the delimited points to the absolute. Things that are limited in time and place, that have certain attributes as opposed to others. God is absolutely one. This is a consensus of most all human beings. Through history, even the micro-religions that we sometimes refer to as primitive religions, yes. The micro-religions all believe in one God. And the study of Wilhelm Schmidt, the great anthropologist and clergyman of the 20th century, has pretty well established that. God is one, absolutely one. Nothing else in creation is. Therefore, all the pairs and all the triads and all the multiplicities of creation point to the one, necessarily. You have to have the right language and the right cognitive frames in order to understand that. Many of us today can't. But this is true. God created in pairs. Yeah. And he created in triads. And he created in hexagons and pentagons and other things. The golden mean, the golden ratio. Beauty is in everything that he did, but in his creation of pairs, you have also the opposites of good and evil. You have also opposites of night and day, and of darkness and of light. So this time, which we believe sometimes to be a time of great enlightenment, may actually prove to be a time of darkness and of what we call complex ignorance, which is when we think that we have knowledge, but we don't. We are ignorant of our ignorance. And so I would say that there's great darkness in the world today. This is a time of great turbulence, and it's a time when we have to put on our spiritual seatbelts, because nobody knows what tomorrow has in store. And
spiritual seatbelts.
Our spiritual seatbelts. And yet, we should also be optimists, because part of the metaphysical truth of reality is that one opposite leads to another. So if you have hate, then you may have love later. That those who usher in these hatreds and divisions, these genocides and genocidal impulses that are destroying our world, they may also lay down unwittingly the foundation for the restoration of love and understanding, that we're not going to let this happen again. And we're going to teach our people to know each other and to love each other. The Arabs say that people are the enemies of what they don't know.
Yes.
And when we don't know each other, then we're likely to be at odds with each other. So even though this is, in my view, a very dark, turbulent, and dangerous time, we're playing with fire. In my own country, we have made, in my belief, huge historical mistakes. And you have to pay for those. Yes. Will my grandchildren have to pay for that? My great-grandchildren? The First Nations of my land, such as the great Iroquois nation, they, whenever they planned anything for the future, any major change, they would try to determine what would be the consequences of that change for the next 7 generations. Because we have to think about 7 generations. Today we don't even think about the next decade. So I believe, though, that after this darkness, light may come. And after these horrific inversions of what should be our norms have happened, I think maybe the norms will be reestablished again. And certainly those of us who believe in God, and that's a great part of my own nation, Americans acknowledge God more commonly than most Europeans or even Canadians. We have to know Him, though, and we have to love Him, and we have to serve Him. And that's something intrinsic to our natures. The knowledge of God, the desire to obey Him, the desire and the need to worship Him, and the love of Him. We have stored in our hearts infinite love of God. I have to tap into that. And we get that from our teachers. Whatever good that we have comes from them. The credit goes to them, not to us. But we ask God to enable us to be conduits of light, the light of the ancient past, the light of all the prophets and the messengers, the light of all the saints, men and women who ever existed, and to be able to attach ourselves to that, and then through that to hopefully bring that beautiful energy to our people and to all people. That is desperately needed in the modern age. Islam, shockingly to most people today, for over 1,000 years, was one of the great success stories of the world. We created civilizations, and those civilizations spread their peacock's tail from east to west. And this peacock's tail was beautiful. Unity in multiplicity, unity in diversity. And it's very important to stress that although the Muslims had their own unity at the core of that, they were able to embrace every single nation on earth. those who agreed with them or almost agreed, and those who disagreed with them. And this ability to tolerate and to protect and to live harmoniously with people that we disagree with, this is one of the most needed values today. We have that in our past.
What went wrong, Dr. Omar? Is it the separation of the spiritual dimension that led to, I would say, madness and anarchy and the dryness and all the problems that we see in the Muslim world and also Muslims living outside the Islamic world? Is it that? Is it the denial of the inner dimension of the Islamic tradition? Because there are people who say that doesn't exist. There's no such thing as the inner dimension. There's no such thing as the esoteric or the inward.
Arnold Toynbee, who is one of the great influences upon me in my life, I really respect him tremendously. He was mostly concerned with the fall of civilization. And when he wrote A Study of History, although he writes about the rise of civilization, he, like many other great thinkers of the 20th century and the late 19th century, was concerned about why civilizations fall. And of course, he's mostly concerned about our own Western civilization, that are we in a good state? Are we actually going to be able to survive? If we were to look at the barometers of civilizational health and apply it to the Muslim masses of the world today and our largely dysfunctional nation states, then we would say that we are in desperate care of the emergency room. Some people would say we've been set up for failure. And there are people in the world who I believe are set up for failure. I believe that about my own brothers and sisters in the inner city, that they are
in Chicago.
In all of our inner cities, Chicago, Detroit, Flint, Philadelphia, New York, and elsewhere. In many cases, they're set up for failure. Just one example. I know of a person who came out of prison recently in New York. He was in drugs. He could earn $100,000 a day easily. When the police arrested him in the inner city, he had $2 million in cash in his apartment. This is a fact. And then when he comes out, he became a Muslim in prison. But when he comes out of prison, it's like, well, you can't do drugs anymore. And you can't leave the inner city because you're on parole. So you have to stay where you committed the crime. So how is he going to earn a living? How is he going to pay his alimony? How is he going to do anything?
It's like set up.
It's like set up. If you don't go back to crime, you don't go back to drugs, then you
can't live, essentially.
You can't live. So this is part of being set up for failure. One of my dear friends here in Dubai, who is an African American whom I've known for decades, he asked two brilliant young boys who are the sons of Muslims who are not going to school. He said, why don't you go to school? And they said basically that we have to cross two gang territories. So it's hard to go to school, and the school's no good anyway. So this is all being set up for failure. The colonial period and post-colonial periods did everything possible to take our civilization and culture apart and to make it such that we could never restore it. I don't want to blame anyone. And if we're going to get into the blame game, then I must blame myself first. And conspiracy theories are very unhealthy. And people who are unhealthy are the ones...
Very popular as well.
And they're most popular with people who are unhealthy. So we're in a situation like that. Many people would say there's no hope for you. And I've never believed that. I believe in miracles. I believe in God. God has power over all things. I believe that those of us who are sincere, and this is a great generation, and I am not only the product of my teachers, but I am the beneficiary of great Muslim scholars in the world today, some of whom you have interviewed. And they are much greater than I, by the way. And I learn from them. I plagiarize them all the time. We are blessed to have people like this. And I think that with this great treasure that we have in the new generation, that inshallah we can do amazing things. We can bring our civilization back to life. We can meet the needs of humanity in this time, and we can create oases in the desert around us.